Last year in episode 18, I restored an original Nintendo Entertainment System and presented some history about the console and its peripherals. The NES was an 8-bit console that sold nearly 61 million units. Following its huge success, it's no wonder that Nintendo developed a 16-bit console. And, just like the original, which was named Famicom for Family Computer, it was first released in Japan in November of 1990 as the Super Famicom. It shortly followed with a release in North America in August of 1991 under the name Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or SNES. The new SNES 16-bit console introduced advanced graphics and sound. Its specifications included a Rico 5A22 16-bit processor, which is a derivative of the WDC65C816 processor that was made for the Apple II GS, and a coprocessor. It was capable of delivering 32,000 colors with a channel of audio and allowed for chip upgrades through the game cartridges. The console also had 128 kilobytes of RAM and 64 kilobytes of VRAM or video RAM. At the time of its release, it competed against the Sega Genesis. According to a book called The Ultimate History of Video Games, the rivalry between Nintendo and Sega resulted in what has been described as one of the most notable console wars in video game history. While the Sega Genesis was discontinued in 1999, it had sold a little over 30 million units. The SNES was discontinued in 2003 and sold a little over 49 million units worldwide after nearly 13 years on the market. And if you ever noticed the little port underneath, it was used only in Japan for a peripheral called Satellaview. This device had 1 megabyte of ROM, an additional 512 kilobytes of RAM, and an 8 megabyte memory pack for storage. It allowed players to download games, magazines, and other media through satellite broadcasts provided by a third-party company called ST Giga. The device sold for 5 years in Japan from 1995 to the year 2000. In the US, there was a very short-lived online gaming network called X-Band produced by Catapult Entertainment in California. It was the only officially licensed modem in America. It was released in November of 1994 and was discontinued in April of 1997. And while there were many third-party controllers and peripherals, Nintendo itself did not release many for this console. There was the Super Scope Bazooka and the SNES mouse. Nintendo never released an adapter for playing NES games on the Super NES. One third-party peripheral was the Professor SF, also known as Game Doctor, developed by a company called Banggood Enterprises, or Bung in North America, that called itself a backup device that allowed backing up of cartridge ROMs to a file that was recorded on a 3.5 floppy disk. This, of course, also allowed a user to play a game from the device without actually owning the original cartridge. And while there was an SNES CD prototype that was developed by Sony, it never saw light of day, and Sony went on to develop its own Sony PlayStation. Some of the best-selling games for the SNES include Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario Kart, and Street Fighter II. Today, the SNES is still very popular amongst retro gamers, and with new homebrewed games and a re-release by Nintendo of the Super NES Classic Edition in 2017 that comes with 21 pre-installed games, the SNES is not going away anytime soon. Well, I happened to find an original Super Famicom made in 1990. It's dirty, it's yellow, I don't know if it works, but it's crying for attention. So let's go ahead and give it a new life. Hello everyone and welcome. I'm the Retro Repair Guy. So first of all, yes, I know I'm like a week late releasing this, and that's not to make up an excuse again. Really, after the last video, I started coughing again. And, I had lost my voice and then I started coughing, so I couldn't record anything. But it was only 5-6 days, but 5-6 days, it really delays the video by a lot. So anyways, I just wanted to tell you that aside from that, I'm very, very happy because I received some donations this week, 3 beautiful donations. I'm holding one right here. And believe me, it is that heavy. It's huge. It's a cassette deck from Toshiba, and it's falling apart, but I'd love to restore it. I got that. I got a real quadraphonic amplifier, and I got a turntable from I gotta tell you this, Noresco. Now, I hadn't heard of Noresco before, but I hear it's a Canadian company, but it was, I believe, stuff that they bought from Rotel. So I don't know the whole story. but definitely we want to look into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be posting the 3 pictures of these items on the forum, on the community, and I want you to go and vote and tell me which one. I'm going to really leave it up to you guys to see what do you want first being restored out of those 3 things. And I still got that Atari that I bought last time. And please tell me. I'll tell you my preference. I really want to fix the cassette because I'm curious as to how great this sounds. It's got view meters, everything. It weighs a ton. It's a PT490 from Toshiba. So Toshiba PT-490 is the model. I'm very curious. I want this first, but like I said, I'll leave it up to you in the community to vote for it. Just another parenthesis, if ever I do fix a turntable, you're going to have to give me an extra week or 2 because I'm going to have to get a vinyl press. Now, there is a company that does it in the States. I can send them my music in WAV formats. They press a record and send it back to me because or else it's very hard for me to play anything without getting flagged on YouTube and getting a strike for it, because all the music I have here is licensed, and whether it's cassettes or CDs, I make them myself. So an LP, I would have nothing to show you and that it's working. So you're just gonna give me a couple of weeks heads up on that one, and I will definitely get a record press. It's in either way, it's in my plan because eventually I do want to show some more turntables and stuff. Because I haven't done any on the show yet. So, anyways, that being said. Today we're looking at the Super Famicom. Now, the Super Famicom, as you know, is a Super NES. It's just from Japan. It was called the Super Famicom. It's a beautiful unit. It was part of those units that I got on eBay because since I paid a lot less for the other one, I got the Atari and I got this one. And it was a really, really bad shape. So let's just dive right in and see what we could do with it.
This video is sponsored by PCBWay, an exceptional manufacturer of printed circuit boards of all types. They make top quality PCBs from your Gerber files starting at only $5. Whether you're in need of getting your own PCBs manufactured with reasonable prices for production runs or simply a one-off prototype PCB, they offer excellent quality and unsurpassed service to help you with your designs and free online quotes. With quick turnaround times and fast delivery, I definitely recommend checking them out. The link is in the description below.
I purchased the Super Famicom from an auction site. It was listed for parts only and came with nothing, no cables, power supply, controller, or games, just a console. You can see from the label this is one of the original Famicom consoles made in Japan in 1990. I purchased a few games from someone locally who was asking $3 a piece for them. I did not know any of these games, nor did I have any idea what shape they were in or if they worked, but at that price, I just bought them. I also got myself a third-party brand new gamepad for the SNES and Super Famicom from the Jungle site. I have a universal cable that connects a few different consoles on one end, and on the other hand it has RCA connectors and an SVHS out as well. I plugged everything in and saw nothing until I realized these things work better when they're plugged in. What can I say? It was early morning and I hadn't had my coffee. I used my universal adapter. It has interchangeable ends and its polarity can be reversed. I set it to 9 volts. I tried the games one by one, but nothing was happening. I doubted that from the 4 games not one was working. You can also see in the screen that when I set the power on, there was a small glitch in the screen, so something was happening, but the console just seemed dead. I fiddled anyways with the wires and checked all the connections. I even gave the cartridges the old 80s blower treatment. Unfortunately, nothing worked. So, I went ahead and opened it up. To open up the Super Famicom, the SNES, or the games, you'll need two special bits of 3.8 and 4.5mm to remove the security screws. The bits are available on the Jungle site, and I'll leave a link in the description below. I first removed the large heatsink to access the parts, and I intended to replace the voltage regulator as well. With the heatsink out of the way, I began a quick visual inspection of the board to see if anything was obvious, such as a blown cap, burnt resistor, or a crack in the board, but the whole thing looked okay. I then proceeded to remove the tiny RF modulator, and I also had to unsolder the DC connector in order to remove the last plastic part since the connector was molded into it. I then unsoldered the board from the casing of the tuner to be able to access the two capacitors inside. I removed the RF shield from the sound module and found two more capacitors in the module. With everything exposed, I was able to see the values, and, as in most consoles of the era, the parts are standard values that I normally have on hand. I was about to start, but the whole unit looked pretty dirty, and I hate soldering with all kinds of dirt around the components. So I took apart everything that was left and figured I would throw the board in the dishwasher while I cleaned up everything else. I also wanted to try to clean one of the game's casing just to see how it would turn out. Okay, so one last little tip just about the retro brighting. Now, not about the process, because I've talked about this before and I don't want to be repetitive, but I do want to say about the container. Of course, always get a clear container, and at the same time, get one with a lid. Okay, now, when you're outside, you don't need to put the lid, obviously. It's better, just the sun is shining on it. And of course, the sun is always the best thing. However, you're wasting 8 or 9 hours that there's no sun, right? I mean, because even though the days are longer, like, let's say 8:30, there's a sunset. So with this, I bring it in, I put the cover on, and I've cut the opening where the lip of the light is just, hanging on the sides here. So, I continue the process for 8 or 9 hours, and these lamps now, they don't heat up. They do feel warm to the touch, but they're not hot. They're not burn anything. There's no risk of fires. It's not like, these old lamps in the old days, right? I mean, that's the beauty of LED, I have to say. And it works quite well, and I continue the process for 8 or 9 hours, so you accelerate a little bit, over 2 nights, that's a whole more day of sun, because, at least 12 hours it was in the sun, so you're getting at least 16 hours that you're gaining there. So it'll speed up the process a little bit, especially if I'm doing a restoration like this. I had some sun one day, the next day was cloudy, cloudy periods, and then, of course, I had to continue it at night. I had to keep going. And even then, I think it probably could have used another 2 or 3 days, of sun. So anyways, just another little tip. The board is out of the dishwasher and looks quite nice. There's a tiny bit of residue that will come off easily with 99% alcohol. I began by removing the large 1000 microfarad capacitor in the power supply section. I tested it, and it showed some almost 10 ohms of resistance, or ESR. I replaced it with a Nichicon audio capacitor that has a higher heat tolerance. I then removed the voltage regulator. By the way, I filmed this close up before the dishwasher so you see how dirty the board was. These old voltage regulators are very common in the Commodore 64. They're not always the best quality depending on where they were sourced from. I'm replacing it with one from Texas Instruments. To make sure I soldered it at the proper height, I temporarily reinstalled the heatsink with 2 screws and then soldered the voltage regulator. I had to remove it again to solder the other side of the board since this is a 2-sided board and the holes were too small for the solder to melt all the way through to the other side. I then cleaned off the residue left with 99% alcohol and a soft toothbrush. I resoldered the cartridge port and other connection points. I sprayed electrical contact cleaner in the 2 connection ports and reset switch. I also resoldered the whole joystick connector board and cleaned the ribbon connection. For this, I used an eraser as I find it works best to clean connectors like these, and then brushed it clean with some electrical contact cleaner. For the little tuner board, I replaced the 2 capacitors with high-end audio capacitors rated for higher voltage and heat tolerance. Mine were a little bigger in size, but there was space to fold them onto the board. I cleaned the channel selector switch, again with electrical contact cleaner, and then resoldered the board into the metal chassis. On these first units, the sound chips are separated from the board and contained in a metal box with an RF shield. There are only 2 47 microfarad capacitors. I tested the old one and it showed some high ESR and was beginning to show some voltage loss. Again, I replaced them both with higher end audio capacitors from Nichicon. There are no residue or any signs showing that thermal paste had been used previously, so the last thing I did was to add thermal paste to the voltage regulator before reassembly. Okay, so for the repair of the cartridge, I just wanted to give you a little pointer here. Now, I bought a box of these, again, on a jungle site, which costs nothing, $10 for a box full. And as you see, the only problem, which is a great idea, okay, the battery just slips in. You don't have to solder or desolder anything. But you see the legs that are sticking out. I would need to cut them. Just cut the legs and solder it directly to the board. Because what happens, and I'll show you the game. The game is just, and I'll try to give you a close-up. I'll try to remember to give you a close-up on this. The game is just not sitting in the groove there because of the stupid little leg that's sticking out. So I'm not sure, again, if you could see here, but the battery is not sitting flush to the board. So it's just a tiny little bit off. Actually, if you compare it to the chips here, you see that it's just a little bit, because the chips clear, everything clears. There's still space. So it's just a little bit. So if ever you think of doing that, I think it's cool to future-proof it, because, in the future, these batteries, even though they last long, after so many years, you're going to have to change it again. But if you want to future-proof it, I would say if you could find one like that, but just a little bit thinner. So I did order that, but I did order myself as well some batteries that can be soldered directly to the board. So for now, what I did is I just aligned it and popped it in like that, because I couldn't close the whole thing again. But just to tell you, that's all I want to give you a little pointer on that. Because of the small battery mod and until the new part comes in, I am unable to fit the module back in the cartridge, so I'm inserting it carefully, making sure the pins are aligned. Well, we have sound and graphics. My Japanese is a little rusty, so I'm pressing the buttons to get through the screen. I think the game's rigged or not functioning properly because I can't possibly be this bad at it. I was not able to get the game Megalomania to work. The basketball game loads and looks fine. It took me forever to figure out how to start the game, so I'll spare you those screens and cut to the gameplay. As for the last baseball game, while I was editing this, I see there's a little distortion on the intro screen at the beginning that I hadn't noticed. However, it went away and the rest of the game played fine, as well as the previous ones. I can tell this one functions because I was able to hit the ball. Everything seems operational, and I'll get around to cleaning and restoring the 3 other cartridges. I would say I successfully gave this console a new life. Alright, so there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed this restoration. A reminder that I'm going to be putting up the pictures. Please go vote on the community for those 3 items that you want to see restored. Tell me which one first. I do have my preference, but I'm going to leave it up to you. So please, I'm very serious. Whatever people vote for, I'm going to go for it. So please go and vote, and don't forget, if there's anything that you want to see as well, leave me either on the community or down below here on this comments. Please let me know if there's anything you want to see restored. And at the same time, if you want to support the channel or you want to send me something or anything, please head on over to retrorepairguy.com/support, retrorepairguy.com/support. And all the links are there. There's also links in the description below. And I want to say thank you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now I'm asking at the end. I don't ask like some people in the beginning. If you watch it till the end, you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I want to say thank you to the existing and the new subscribers. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon with another restoration. Bye-bye.